I want to start with the Zion hype train. And look, I've been a conductor on this thing. I just have. I love to watch Zion Williamson play. And when the Duke Blue Devils take the floor tonight, I, just like everybody else, will be watching. Tonight is it's big boy basketball. You got the Blue Bloods. Duke, Carolina, Kentucky, Michigan State. Right? Like 4 programs synonymous with college excellence, synonymous with great coaching and great players, and you have likable stories across the board. Carolina and their style, P.J. Washington returning, we think, for the Kentucky Wildcats, and all that Kentucky has to offer with John Calipari, Duke with Zion and Coach K, and Michigan State, who has a little bit of the little engine that could, considering the injuries and the 2 departures to the NBA, which has seemingly made Michigan State a better team. But I was listening to Colin's show earlier this week, and if he took calls, I would have been the first caller. If he looked at his phone, which he sometimes does during a break, I would have texted him. Instead, I was driving on the 405, and I'm like, what are you doing? What are you talking about? Because what Colin did was he took a tweet from Paul Pierce and then he doubled down on it. Paul Pierce said, and this was from his Twitter account, hot take for all of you, Zion Williamson is already a top 50 current basketball player in the world. Now, look, I can sit here and debate back and forth with Paul Pierce, who is a contemporary. He and I were actually roommates way back when at the ABCD camp, and he said, I'm going to be the best player in high school basketball, and he probably was in 1995. That's a class that had Kevin Garnett, was probably the best player, Stephon Marbury, and you got Vince Carter. Paul was right there. This was, in fact, a hot take, because in order to be a top 50 basketball player in the world at 18 years old, that would make him better than the top 2 players on every team. And keep in mind that some teams have more than top 2 players, right? Like, name me a Golden State Warrior starter who Zion Williamson is better than today. And what we're doing is we're conflating an argument. Would you trade an all-star to get Zion Williamson? Maybe, and maybe yes. Yes. Look, I see it. He's the next version of Draymond Green, a guy who can guard any position and can kind of play any position. He can actually shoot the basketball a little bit, whereas Draymond's shot has fallen off. His body has kind of fallen apart, whereas, with the exception of twisting a knee because his shoe blew up, there's been no issues with Zion Williamson's body. But Colin said he's a top 20 player right now. And I want you to take a breath, because you're going to have to stop and tell me who he's better than. You know, is he better than LeBron or James Harden or Paul George or Kawhi or Joel Embiid or Steph or Giannis or Kevin Durant or Damian Lillard or Devin Booker or Kemba or Jimmy Butler or Ben Simmons or Klay Thompson or Kyrie? No. Do you know how you lose games in the NBA when you're trying to tank? You play your younger players. The same argument we make against people who sit at seats like this on TV channels and radio networks like this and say Duke could compete with NBA teams like the Cleveland Cavaliers is the exact same argument I'll make about Zion. Look, there's a legit conversation to be had that NBA people are trying to figure out. Is Ja Morant actually a better prospect than Zion Williamson? Zion Williamson is a happening. He makes basketball fun. He makes you think the impossible might be possible. But I hate to be the guy that throws cold water on this thing. But if you watched yesterday, you realize that Purdue lost 4 starters and is playing in the Elite 8. Texas Tech lost 4 starters and is playing in the Elite 8. Hell, even Michigan lost Mo Wagner, their one pro from last year, and Muhammad Ali Abdul-Rahman, and they're just as good in terms of wins and losses as they were last year. Michigan State's going to play tonight. They lost their 2 lottery picks and don't have a lottery pick on their team, and they won the Big Ten and won the Big Ten tournament. Why is that? Well, the truth is that college basketball is trending the way of college baseball. Look, if you're anything or any good, you at least think you're a one and done. Think about how many guys have left early. And so the attrition of guys leaving early has allowed programs like the Nevadas of the world, to compete. Or even Gonzaga, where you have late bloomers like a Brandon Clark. The idea is this. You have to understand who Zion is competing against. He does look like a man against boys because he's playing against boys. When you're a boy playing against men, you look like a boy. If you've seen him in person, you know that upper body, he looks like a brick you-know-what house. But his lower body is still thick. He hasn't yet leaned out. He hasn't yet lost all that body fat. He's just now beginning to shoot the basketball, kind of a set shot from college three-point range. Hey, in the NBA, here's the saying. You don't get longer. You don't get faster. Everybody else does. The shots are deeper. Yes, the floor opens up and you can score more, but you can also get exposed more. Look, I'm not sitting here going to tell you Zion Williamson stinks or that eventually he doesn't project to be a likely all-star. I love him. But at 18 years old, with 20 games under his belt, playing for the Duke Blue Devils, as an undersized power forward who continues to improve and impress, let's catch our breath. In order for him to be a top 20 player in the NBA, he has to be better than 2/3 of the league's best players on their team. And that's just, look at D'Angelo Russell, who was the number 2 pick, who absolutely dominated college basketball. He comes out, and it's not till year 4 where he's an all-star. That doesn't mean that Zion won't be better than D'Angelo Russell, but right now, if you're going to play a game tomorrow, no one on earth in the NBA who loves basketball and loves Zion Williamson would take Zion ahead of D'Angelo Russell. No one. Not a single soul. Not a human being. I mean, you wouldn't take him ahead of Jason Tatum, would you? Of course not. Jason Tatum's got a couple years in the league now, plus the year under his belt at Duke. You wouldn't take him ahead of Kemba Walker, would you? Look, I'm already 3 deep on the Boston Celtics. He'd be 3 deep on the Boston Celtics roster, and I haven't gotten to Al Horford. Al Horford, well, he moves, he's slow. Yeah, but you know what? If I want to win a basketball game tonight, not look good, not dunk good, I take Al Horford. 6 days a week, twice on Sunday. Let's not conflate the argument about what he could project to be and why some people may move mountains in order to get him with the conversation of what he is today. Have reasonable expectations. The reason you play young players in order to tank is because they're just not as good as the older players. They haven't yet hit their basketball prime. Let's stop making insane arguments. Insane arguments like, he's a top 20 player in the world. No, he's not. He's probably not a top 50 player in the world. Is he a top 50 prospect? Would you rather have him than 30 other guys in the NBA? Maybe. Sure. I'll have that conversation. But this is like the conversation of, would you trade LeBron James? You can't, because he's not moving. It's not happening. Stop having conversations over things that aren't possible and aren't comparable. He looks like a man against boys because he's playing against boys. Anyone who pays any attention will tell you that that college basketball, as much as I love it, I've covered it for 16 years, I played it for 5. I've been around it my entire life. I'm going to take my son to the Final Four. This is like my 13th or 14th Final Four that I've been to. Actually, maybe more. I got to redo my math. I can quote chapter and verse in all of them. And the reason he looks like a man playing against boys is because he's playing against boys. And a boy playing against a man looks like that. So catch your breath. Understand that what a guy projects to be is not what a guy is now. Enjoy this ride, whether it ends tonight against Virginia Tech, who does have grown-ups, who does have more man-like bodies, or if it ends in a national championship crowned in Minnesota, where Duke has won 2 national titles. However it ends, just enjoy it. Know that he's probably going to be the first. He might be the second-round pick. And people are having a discussion about, hey, boy, I kind of like Ja. And Ja Morant is a dominant ball-handling point guard, which you look around the NBA and from the rookies, like Trae Young or, maybe even Luka, who's not really a point guard, but like a point power forward, guys that have the ball in their hands more. And then you go to a James Harden, and you go to a Steph Curry, and you go to a Damian Lillard, or you go to a Russell Westbrook. Those guys have the ball in their hands so much. They make so many more plays. They have a better value. This is like a quarterback, like a Kyler Murray versus a Nick Bosa, right? That's essentially what this argument is. Ja Morant is a Kyler Murray type. Quarterbacks have way more value than a defensive end, no matter how highly rated a defensive end is. And I think having a small ball power forward center, even if he's only 6'5.5", 6'6", if he can guard all 5 positions, and he can make a shot, he can pass, he has a high basketball IQ and a ridiculous pair of legs, he has value. That's an actual conversation taking place. But nobody who's reasonable is having a conversation whether or not he's a top 20 player in the world, because we know it's men and he's playing against boys. Played over a decade in the NBA, of course, won an NBA title. He's Matt Barnes. He joins us here in the Herd. It's interesting, Matt. I mean, you are a guy who brought kind of toughness and cohesiveness and chemistry to every team that you played on. And I do think, like, whether it's the Warriors and what and what Andre Iguodala brings to them and what Sean Livingston has brought to them, or whether it's last night with Kay Clark, the kid from the Valley, brings to Virginia. Right. Like, we are all trained. Our eyes are trained to look at the stars, but it's those other guys that do the little things that really make championship teams, no?
You can be a star in your role. Necessarily you have 2 or 3 superstars, now with the NBA is 2 or 3 superstars, but you can always be a star in your role. And I think that's what gives some guys longevity. I was allowed to play 14 years, Sean and Iggy or, can play as long as they want. I think it's, once you understand what your role is, you could be a star in that role. You don't have to necessarily be a superstar, but you could be a star in that role and understand your role and have a long career.
All right, let me just quickly put a cap on last night and get ready for tonight. Last night, Purdue wins. They shoot the eyes out of the basketball, and Tennessee has this incredible comeback. Did you have any issue with the foul call at the end of regulation between Purdue and Tennessee?
He got fouled. He got fouled.
Got to protect the shooter, right?
Right, exactly. You know what I mean? It looked like he was out. I don't know if he was exactly out, all the angles, but, at the end of the day, he got fouled, and that's one thing you definitely have to do is, as a shooter, once you're up in the air, you're as vulnerable as it can be. So if you're not protected, it gets dangerous. And like you said, he made 2 out of 3 of the free throws, and then Tennessee had a chance to win it again in overtime and couldn't. But it's been a great tournament. It's been fun to watch. I finally got my twins into actually sitting down and getting off their iPads and watching college basketball, which is amazing. Yeah. So it's been a fun time to watch.
Yeah, me too. My son's always been like YouTube and then watching highlights. I'm like, no, actually watch
the game.
Watch the games. Watch how people play against the zone. Right. Why do they play zone? Because it works. Right. Okay, tonight we're going to see Zion, and I've talked to NBA people, and they're like, we all love Zion. And since about midseason, it's been that he's going to be the number 1 pick. Mm-hmm. But then you watch Ja Morant and you look at the league, and you look at how dominant ball handlers dominate this league, at least in the regular season. Whether it's from Steph to James Harden to what Trae Young is doing now here late in the season as a rookie. And I think Zion projects to be some form of Barkley meets Draymond meets Blake Griffin, right? Like a small ball 5 starting at your power forward. And he's got some work to do in his jump shot, but he seems to have a high basketball IQ and a motor. His body's a little bit in question. Can you play it that big? If you took away the fact that his name is Zion Williamson and he's a thing, he's going to sell out every seat in your barn for the entire year. Who do you take, Ja Morant or Zion Williamson?
That's a lot to take away, though. So I'm taking Zion from the standpoint of, he's still young. When people talk about his strength and he's playing man amongst boys, which he is, but at the same time, at his size and strength right now, he's one of the bigger players in the NBA as well. You know, when you come just pound for pound, he's probably top 5 in weight. You know, was he about 275?
He'd be the heaviest. I believe he'd be the heaviest player in the NBA.
Yeah,
only. God, what's the big dude who's Boban?
Okay,
only Boban weighs that much.
So I think, you know, as NBA players, I think he'll definitely lean out, but at the same time get stronger. I don't see him staying at 280. I think his playing weight, like once when we see the best of Zion, he'll probably be around a 265. But I think you know, he's so skilled and soft touch, and he can handle the ball, he can pass the ball. He gets knocked for shooting, but you know, his job is going to be to learn to shoot. You know, for the next 15 years or however long he plays in the NBA. So I think the excitement factor and the wow factor and the way he dunks the ball, he's the #1 pick. And I think, you know, a franchise like New York needs that. They need eyes, and they need someone who can fill seats. They need someone who's going to have a huge shoe contract that they can start making commercials about and all that kind of stuff. So I think he's more of a franchise revitalizing pick. Now, when you talk straight skill,
yes,
R.J. Barrett and the other kid, Moreno, are very, very skilled and very, very talented. So it's going to be, I said it like last week, I think this is going to be like a Carmelo, LeBron, D-Wade type of situation when you look at it maybe 10 to 12 years, where all three of these guys have very successful careers and have done very well for themselves.
All right, who's going to get that UCLA job? Matt Barnes, obviously a UCLA alum, continues to join us. You got any idea? Like, it has been really a state-held secret who gets the UCLA job.
I mean, there's talks, there's rumblings about some big names, and then, you know, I heard Earl Watson did really well in his interview. You know, to me, if you can't get a historical name that's bigger than the program that could really change things around, I think for once they need to go grassroots with someone that can get some of the alumni back and really build that UCLA pride back up that the school so desperately needs.
Yeah, it is interesting. Like, look, having been in that position before, I can tell you that, like, part of the sale is like, hey, look, recruiting is about telling a story. Mm-hmm. When it's your story, it's a lot easier to tell, right? A lot easier to tell. And then, of course, the bringing back guys, instead of having to be told, hey, this guy played here then, and this guy played here then. I mean,
especially with how many guys. I mean, we have a UCLA group chat where there's about 20 of us, anywhere from, you know, Charles O'Bannon to Toby Bailey to Baron Davis, Earl Watson. All of us are still very well connected, and that's the disconnect with UCLA, is there's no connection with the alumni.
Right, because and the former coaches aren't necessarily around. Right. I know that Coach Herrick is now at Cal State Northridge, but I wonder if Charles Rochlin, why he doesn't get on that, that group. I'm an old school UCLA guy. All right, Matt Barnes, here's what I think the Lakers are. Have you noticed that all the moves the Clippers have made, Blake Griffin traded, Chris Paul traded, Tobias Harris traded, did anyone see those moves coming? Did anyone see them coming?
Poker hand, poker faces.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's generally the way the NBA works, right? When Kawhi Leonard was moved to the Toronto Raptors, there was no rumors of, right? So here's how I relate it, and you've been married, you have kids, you know how this works. Like, there are times as a dad where you gotta sneak out early. And when I say sneak out, it sounds sneaky, but I'm just saying you got to get out of the house early, go get coffee or go to work. And when the kids are asleep, you can't wake them up. And some dads just don't have the ability to be ninja dads. You know, they step on every Lego, they stub their toe, they rattle their keys constantly, right? Like, there's a way to pick up your keys where instead of doing this and wake somebody up, you grab them and you grab the key and then you have them in your hand. The Lakers are the guy that's rattling the keys, making the noise when they get up in the morning. Like, everyone sees them coming. Why is that?
I think it's, you know, the old ad of loose lips sink ships. And I think they're almost a desperation stage where if they have a good move, they want to tell the world because, you know, they didn't do a very good job last season. So they want to let everyone know, like, okay, well, we're, you know, with Magic, we're going to get another one next year. And this is the coach we're going after now. And this is what's going on. You know, I think it may be an LA thing. It may be a Laker thing, or it may be a fact of, okay, we haven't done so well thus far. So let me say what our plans are, and maybe that'll take some pressure off us. But to me, that's backwards thinking. To me, you have to move very strategically this summer with everything you do, from trades to coaches to if there's management changes. Everything has to be very strategic, because they could possibly be at a point where, you know, they're dangling all their young talent again and don't really trade for anybody. So then you got to bring these same guys that you tried to trade at the trade deadline. You tried to dangle them all summer, and then you're trying to tell them, okay, now we believe in you. Let's have a good season. So I think this has to be a very big quiet from a strategic standpoint summer, but they really need to make some stuff happen.
The problem with that, though, is, and that's smart. Problem, though, is now we get the Rick Carlisle story. Which
right.
Look, Rick Carlisle makes sense, right? Offensive mastermind, guy who's got a healthy ego, but it's supported by the fact he's been in two NBA finals and won an NBA championship against LeBron.
Right.
And, part of the deal is in order to win in the NBA, you have to have respect to the locker room. In order to have respect to the locker room, you have to have won in the NBA. So, I get, now the Doc Rivers thing. Okay, was that just floated? Was that Doc trying to get a new contract, which he got with the Clippers? Or was that a real possibility?
I heard it was a real possibility. And when I first heard, I'm just like, no way. To me, the Clippers look like they're on the up and up. They look like a smooth situation. But then I happened to be somewhere the day it broke, and the people I was working with are, very entwined to, what's going on. And they said that was a real situation. Now, whether because it broke and it got so big that they had to kind of hush that up, they don't want to have a distraction going into the playoffs, because all of a sudden now he has a handshake deal to be the coach next year. I've never really heard a handshake deal. Normally if you're getting an extension, you're going to sign it. So, but for what I was told that day, that it was a serious move.
Okay, so that's not going to happen. I don't think the Carlisle thing is going to happen. I don't think Jason Kidd's getting the job, dude. You can't go on TV talking about a job that's not open. That does not go over well in most NBA circles, right? So then you have, Mark Jackson, you got Ty Lue, you got, college coaches out there. Who's the guy who can fix it?
I don't know if there's a coach that can fix it. To be honest with you, I think you kind of have to go more along the lines of this team is built. This is LeBron's team, so to speak. So I think you got to get a LeBron guy from that standpoint, maybe someone that can get out the way and let LeBron be LeBron. But I think more than anything, you need personnel, that fits him. They didn't have any from the beginning last year. Everyone was excited about the team, but a glaring weakness was shooting. LeBron is very successful when the court is spaced. He can attack and he can penetrate and kick or score. They didn't have that kind of spacing this year, mixed with a lot of other stuff. So I think more than a coach, a coach will be important somewhat, but this is a players' league more than anything. You need a coach that can, have respect, obviously, but then probably his best attribute for the Lakers is going to be to get out the way.
Yeah, the one question I have is he was able to cover up some of those shooters' weaknesses defensively for a long time, and now he can't, right? And so it dramatically changes when you kind of got to hide LeBron defensively. Last thing, I don't know if you saw the story. You're a former Warrior. Jordan Bell was suspended for a game, and apparently it was because he charged a candle from Bed Bath & Beyond to Mike Brown's room. Right, and I guess there's a running prank but there has to be something more to the story than just a $15 candle.
Yeah, I remember, this is a funny story. I remember we were in Phoenix with Shaq, and me, him, Steve, Raja, we all went to eat one day, and we charged a huge bill to Terry Porter's room, and they were pissed. We ate, and they were pissed. I might have just snitched. My bad. But anyway, so this is something that happens where, players will charge stuff to other people. It happened on the Clippers before, charging stuff. So that's funny. But for him to be suspended, I think there has to be a little bit more, because we charged a lot of money on some coaches' bills and no one ever got suspended.
Can the Celtics get it together before the playoffs?
I think so. They're such an intriguing team, and I think if there wasn't so much drama with the Lakers, that would have been more dissected, because I think that was a very unhappy locker room. But then at times you see how talented they are. And I think more than anything, normally a team has to, mold their game to the superstar. I think this is one exception where Kyrie has to mold his game to what those younger players are doing, because they've done it without him. I think if Kyrie can do that, go out there, play basketball, share the ball, have fun, they're going to be, they're definitely someone that can come out of the East.
You know what the one that no one's talking about? The Thunder. The Thunder have gone from second best team in the West, legit challenger, to, eighth seed in the West. Played better last time out against the Pacers, but what the hell happened to Thunder's chemistry?
I think a little bit of, to me, it's always been less is more with Westbrook, and I think that he showed flashes this year where he's kind of taking a little bit of a backseat and let Paul do the bulk of the scoring, because normally a point guard shooting that much is not going to work if you're called on to be the main distributor. Steph can get away with taking 20 shots because they have a lot of other distributors on that team, the guys that get people make plays for other guys. But Russ is counted on so much to distribute as well that I think when he takes around 15 to 16 shots instead of 24 to 25 shots, obviously they're a better team.
I was told a long time ago that the smartest guy in the room usually says the least, right? There's the old adage, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, listen more and speak less. Or maybe here's the more effective parallel. Be a ninja dad. Ninja dad. To do the herd, we usually meet a couple hours before the show. And I don't live right next to the studio, so I like to get up super early in the morning. But if I get up in the morning, my dog gets up with me. And he wants to go to the park. And I have a couple of chores. Take him to the park. Get myself some coffee. Get my wife a chai. Come back. And listen, if he hears me in my room or in any other room in the house, he's not trying. He's clomping around on the wood floor. Now, the way to be a ninja dad, even with that dog is to take off his collar the night before, to take your keys and put it close to the door, to make sure you have socks on, because no matter how quiet you think you are with bare feet, you're much quieter with socks on. Make sure you're not wearing the type of pants that slosh. Shh, 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 shh. Even when you pick up your keys, don't pick them up like this. Grab the keys with your hand softly. If you're going to brush your teeth, sorry, dude, you're going to spit, but you got to do it quietly, and you can't wash the spit out. That's part of the deal. Don't flush the toilet. No matter how gross your wife thinks it is, the second you flush the toilet, the dog is up, the kids are up, the wife is up, and nobody's happy. Instead, gotta be a ninja dad. Get outside, get in the car, close the door, roll down the street, and you're on your way. They're asleep. You're relatively happy. You didn't have to take the dog to the park, and you get on your way to work. Now, the Lakers are the guy that forgets to take the collar off, forgets to turn off the alarm, so they open up the door. Beep, 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 beep. The Lakers are the guy that picks up the keys. They wake up. Oh, your alarm goes off, not once, but they press snooze, and then it goes off twice. In case anyone wasn't awake, everybody's awake. Every move they have made, they have telegraphed it, right? Boy, actually, there's an analogy that maybe needs refining. Does anybody know what a telegraph is? Is there anybody alive that actually has used a telegraph anymore? A telegraph was something that used to send out, you'd tell somebody else, and they would use some sort of Morse code and send it along the lines back from World War II. That's what the Lakers have done. From who they were going to acquire in the offseason to potential trades during the season to now potential hires for next season. They haven't even fired Luke Walton, and there's already, well, we want Doc. No, we want somebody else. No, we want Rick Carlisle. No, we want this. No, everyone knows their moves beforehand. It's almost like they're playing cards, but instead of the cards looking at them, the cards are facing everybody else. See? I kind of got close to a full house. No, you have one ace. They just need to do everything in the shadows like every other NBA team. Remember when the Clippers were going to trade Blake Griffin? Was there any warning? Nope. When the Clippers traded Chris Paul for like 15 players, any warning? Nope. When they traded Tobias Harris, any warning? Like, don't tell me it's LA. The Clippers have operated in the shadows and no one knew. The Knicks traded Kristaps Porzingis. The same day he said he wanted to be traded, he was traded. There wasn't this buildup, wasn't this nonsense. They just need one mouth, two ears. Listen more. Operate in the shadows. Be ninja dads. You want to change your culture? First thing you can do is stop sharing your information with people who are going to leak it to the media. Everybody wants to be important. Everybody wants to share their story. Everybody wants to see it on the bottom line, and whether it's Woj or Broussard or whoever it is. Shams. Oh, I'm gonna text this guy and get my story out. No. Shut it down. Get into your bunker. Make your moves. And don't let anybody know they're going to happen till they've already happened. That's how we signed Rob Parker, right? But no one knew Rob Parker was coming over till we got him. Now he's got his own radio show, The Odd Couple, with Chris Broussard. He's our crazy uncle. He joins us in the herd.
What's happening?
Now, I will point out that Rob IG's out before every appearance, so it's not like it's a surprise. But
I do like to put it out there, social media.
It is like, there's one thing to leave breadcrumbs, but they leave pork chops so everybody can kind of follow them. Why are the Lakers so easy why do they have such bad tells as to what they're doing?
You know what? and Chris Broussard brought this up, and I believe him, that because they lost out on Paul George, and you remember they took for granted basically that he was coming. The word for 2 years was Paul George wants to play for the Lakers. So they didn't really go after him. They didn't pursue him. It was kind of like a foregone conclusion.
Well, they didn't even get a meeting with him, to be honest.
No, right, because he declined a meeting with Magic. But I'm saying because it was kind of a laissez-faire attitude towards that, now they want to let everybody know, Anthony Davis, we want you. We're going after Anthony Davis. We'll give up anybody, anything just to get him. So now it's like, you're right. Everything is on Front Street. Everything is out there, and I think that they're mishandling it. The whole front office and the way things have been handled, total disaster. And here we are, Lakers out of the playoffs.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see how they fix it, if they're able to fix it.
Doug, I don't think they'll be able to fix it because I don't see a star player joining LeBron James, and I also don't see the Pelicans wanting to make a deal with the Lakers. I don't see it. They will look everywhere, high and far, anybody else, because the Lakers came to steal their player, so they don't want to make a deal with them.
I listen, that sounds good, but if they offer 3 young starters and draft picks, if they offer the kitchen sink, I think you're going to end up
from the starters that just couldn't make the playoffs, couldn't beat the Bulls.
They weren't
Cavs.
healthy.
No, I'm talking about when they lost to the Bulls and Cavs. Those guys were healthy.
No, they didn't. No, they didn't.
Yes, they were healthy.
They haven't had Lonzo Ball.
Oh, Lonzo's a different. He's the reason why they're out of the playoffs.
Well, I think it's a big reason they're out of the playoffs is they're not healthy. When they were healthy, they were a playoff team at least.
Okay. Did they have a chance to make the playoffs when LeBron came back from his injury?
Yes.
And did they lose to the Hawks and New Orleans without AD?
Yes.
And to Memphis?
Yes.
And to the Suns?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I'm not disputing any of that. I'm not disputing that change isn't needed, but I think honestly, the parts that are going to change out, many of the parts that are going to change out are actually the good parts.
I'll bet you chicken wings right here, right now, that New Orleans will not make a deal with the Lakers.
You're probably right. Like, look, you got all kinds of different factors working against you. Who you're going to hire as your head coach if you fire Luke Walton. By the way, Luke was doing a good job before LeBron got hurt.
Luke will be fired.
Okay, but we all agree Luke's going to be fired, right? If you hire Ty Lue, who's seen as a LeBron guy, you run into the same thing they've run into before, which is a lot of guys like, look, I'm not Team LeBron. I'm not rep by Rich Paul. Other agents don't want to do business there. It becomes trickier. Right? So then you get, and even if you rebuild it around what they did, for example, in Cleveland, right, where you put all shooters, you had Kevin Love, and you had, when they won, they had Kyrie Irving, which is another star.
Sure.
So even if you rebuild it around LeBron with shooters, you're depending on LeBron to be the same LeBron of 2 or 3 years ago, and he's not that guy.
And that's the best point, because I think that's where everybody thought LeBron is just going to be LeBron, even though the numbers, Doug, are still there, right? 28, 8, and 8, or whatever it is, 27, 8, and 8. They're not the same impactful numbers that they used to be to me. They don't. LeBron, in years gone by, he would be able to beat the Suns in Memphis almost by himself.
Yeah.
He can't do it anymore.
No, look, he's statistically dominant, but if you watch the game, there's many plays in which he takes off. And he doesn't look like the same athlete. Who is the same athlete with that much tread worn off the tires? We'll see if he loses weight, if he can transform himself, if the extra time off helps him. But I'm generally with you. Guys don't get, like, we all operate like, well, it's going to be the same old LeBron. No one's the same at 34, 35 that they were at 30. It doesn't exist unless you're going to, do what baseball players did and use steroids, going back a decade ago. Zion Williamson's going to play tonight. I have an opinion of him. I'd love yours.
I think he's a fantastic player. I think people have gone off the rails with this prisoner of the moment that he should be in the Hall of Fame tomorrow, and he's a top 50, top 20 player in the NBA. He's a man amongst boys in college, and I think until we see him come to the pros and play against other players more on his level, we really don't know. And, Doug, I can go back on and on and on about the great college players who didn't transfer over. Am I saying he's going to be a bust or he's not a great player? I'm not saying that. But Christian Laettner might be a top 5 college player of all time when you add it all up. And he was also ran in the pros who went to one All-Star game and is probably more famous for getting punched in the mouth by Jerry Stackhouse than anything else he did in the NBA. So I'm just saying, and he won 2 titles in college for Duke and is an author of a couple of fantastic finishes and moments in college basketball.
Well, look, hold on. First of all, just in full disclosure, Christian Laettner should not have been on the Dream Team.
He was.
But I know. But if you're an all-star, you're not an also-ran as an NBA player.
He's an also-ran. As far as where people thought his career was going to be.
Okay. Look,
that's all I'm saying.
Here's what's going for Zion, which wouldn't have been going for Zion if you go back to when Christian Laettner was coming out, right? Is that if you go back 15 years ago, he would have had to become a small forward, power forward. Now he can do exactly what he's doing at Duke in the NBA. Be a power forward who can handle the ball and also play small ball 5. He's the same size as Draymond Green. He's got crazy athleticism. He has a high basketball IQ. Look, I think he's going to be a terrific pro.
So do I.
Terrific pro.
I'm not doubting that at all.
I don't think he's a top 20 player right now in the world, or maybe even top 50 player, because look, college basketball is way more watered down than it's been, and he's great, but he is a man playing against boys, men playing against men. It's a completely different story. The question that NBA people are asking is, do you take Ja Morant over him? Because Ja Morant, and maybe even R.J. Barrett, I wouldn't take Barrett over him, but Morant plays the style that you want a lead guard to play. And much like quarterbacks in the NFL, they have more value. When you handle the ball every time down the court, you have more value than when you're a small ball 4, small ball 5. Would you shun conventional wisdom, which says take Zion Williamson, sell out every place in your every seat in your arena, and would you take Ja Morant?
Well, the problem is, it's a business. And who's selling tickets? NCAA ratings are up 8%. I get all that. And if you're a GM making that gutsy call, you better make sure you get that right. Because if you don't take him and he winds up being that guy that they're all claiming he is, it'll be a blunder. So I would be stunned if anybody was man enough to not take him with the first overall pick, whether or not. And don't forget, there were GMs who took Olajuwon and Sam Bowie over Michael Jordan, right? Because they normally go after the bigger guys.
Yeah. I mean, look, but this is not a bigger guy; it's a smaller guy. But yes, look, it's if you take Ja Morant over him, you better make sure you get it, you nail it.
You got to nail it. You have to, or your job is done.
Well, yes, because you have to tell your owner, hey man, I know we were going to make a whole bunch of money off of the court, but I got a better player. I want to ask you about Bryce Harper last night. Bryce Harper 0 of 3, did have a walk, did score a run. But considering the contract, considering the hype, I understand it's just baseball, it's just day one.
It's one game, and you can't get too caught up on an 0 for 3. But this is it. And I know some people are pushing back on Philly fans. First of all, the scene, Doug, was unbelievable with the crowd for him. I mean, the thing that they've done in Philly is amazing. We know he signed a $330 million contract, but here's the other thing. The Phillies sold 100,000 tickets in 24 hours after he was signed, which is an incredible number of tickets. He also outsold LeBron's L.A. Laker jersey with his name on it online after he signed with Harper signed with Philly, and now he's also passed Aaron Judge for the highest selling jersey in Major League Baseball, which tells you this is a guy who moves the needle. And there are going to be those bad nights where he strikes out 2 or 3 times. There'll be those big home run nights. The Phillies have a really good team. Maybe the pitching isn't as good as some of the other teams, but their lineup is solid. I'm telling you, this is a good thing for baseball, good thing for Bryce Harper. And Philadelphia fans are as passionate as they get. They booed him after he struck out his second time in the debut. I get it. But they'll also, the next inning, cheer him like there's no tomorrow if he hits a big home run or gets a big hit.
All right, last thing, NFL executive, unnamed NFL executives, it says dangerous precedent we're setting with Antonio Brown being traded, demanding a trade, missing Week 17 of the NFL. What's your reaction to that story?
How long has this executive been in the league? Because this has been going on forever. I remember John Elway not wanting to go to Baltimore. I'm going to play for the Yankees. I'm not going. How about Eli Manning was supposed to go to the Chargers, told him that he wasn't going. No,
but that's before a season they ever played a down.
No, but I'm still saying, but he forced his way out of going to where the Chargers wanted him.
No, I understand, but it's different when you're in the middle of a season and then you're under contract. You've been well compensated. Like Antonio Brown hasn't been. This was Antonio Brown wanting a guaranteed contract. By the way, this was all like this was.
He didn't have any guaranteed money left.
Right.
I don't have a problem with the
Why? He negotiated the contract. He signed that contract.
It's a bad contract. Do teams break contracts? Yes, they do it all the time, Doug.
What do you mean if they break contracts?
Yeah, they sign a contract with a certain amount of guaranteed money.
Yes.
Or they say you're too highly paid and you need to take a pay cut in order to stay on the roster.
Right.
So
and if they cut you and you decide not to resign, you can go sign elsewhere and get a new contract.
I get it, but they also can get out of the deal that you did sign with them because they want to get out.
They can get out.
You can't get out if you want to.
It's all based upon the contract that you signed.
No, it's a bad contract.
No, you signed the contract.
It's the CBA. I'm just saying it's bad.
But again, you're arguing about a team signing a contract. Like that's the contract that you signed. By the way, Antonio Brown's deal was reworked while he was under contract previously.
I have no problem with the person. First of all, as a team, I don't want anybody who doesn't want to be there. So that's first of all. Somebody doesn't want to be there. You want to keep your wife in the marriage if she doesn't want to be there?
It's completely different when you're under
contract.
No,
you signed
with
a commitment with her. You had a commitment, didn't you?
Yeah, yes, but that's not a marriage. Okay, this is a place of employment.
It's a contractual marriage.
No, it's not. It's a place of employment.
This is totally different. This isn't working at the Burger Shack. This is totally different.
It's the exact same thing. You sign a contract to work for a team.
Contracts
you can't go like, hey, you know what? Things are. I don't like my quarterback. I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? You are the one who signed the deal that had 3 more years on it. Nobody forced you. No one put a gun to your head to have you sign that deal ever. You did not. Okay, and he was the one who bailed on his team in week 17 of the season.
He showed up. They didn't want to play him. He was there.
He showed up. They didn't want to play him. He didn't show up to practice.
Doug, all I'm saying is I'm about players' right to, if you want out, and a team won't listen to you when you go and say, can you please trade me? I don't want to be here anymore.
He had $21 million in dead cap money.
Right, but it wasn't guaranteed. Right.
So it hurts the team to trade him. If you didn't have that, they would have gladly gotten rid of him. Last thing. So let's get this straight. You defend Antonio Brown, his actions. Only guy in America to do that.
Okay.
You think that Tom Brady is the luckiest of all time, right? The LOAT?
The LOAT. There you go.
The LOAT. And you think Tom Izzo's wildly overrated.
He's won 1 championship in 20 years.
He's at Michigan State.
Okay.
He is not at Duke. He is not at Carolina.
But he's gotten to the Final Four. Go look at his record against the elite programs in the United States, Doug. Right. Is it good or bad?
Well, I mean, all depends. Like,
no, is it good?
Does he have the players that they have at Duke, at Carolina, at Kentucky?
If you can get to the Final Four and you can get to these championships, get into these games, and that's the oldest excuse in the world. Well,
kind of hard. Ben Howland got there 3 years in a row at UCLA. Didn't win one.
Okay, but he's won a championship, and all I'm saying is, in order for him to be considered one of the all-time great coaches, he has to win another one.
He won 600 games. He won the Big Ten and Big Ten tournament.
Nice.
After losing
Very nice. Ask Tom Izzo, does he need to win another championship to solidify his career? He'll tell you that.
He would say, I'd like to.
No,
but he's also
tells you he wants to.
He's
he needs
reasonable
to.
about it. He's crazy. Crazy Uncle Rob Parker. Check out The Odd Couple, which is on at 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific, along with a very sane, very sensible Chris Broussard. It's a really, really good show.
Thanks, Doug.